I still don't know why people say the deep woods are peaceful. The first night I truly understood fear, there were no screams, no sudden movement, just silence that felt alive. The kind of silence that listens back. I've spent years collecting these stories. Stories people only whisper about. Stories that come from places where phone signals die and something else wakes up. These are not legends. These are not campfire tales. These are true encounters from the deep woods. And once you hear them, sleeping won't come easy. Before I tell you what happened out there, take a moment to subscribe to Dark Truth. This channel is where real psychological horror lives. Stories that stay with you long after the sound fades. Now lie still, turn the lights off, and listen carefully, because the woods are closer than you think. I'll start with the first story. I was 22 when I took a seasonal job as a fire lookout in northern Oregon. It sounded simple. Sit in a tower, watch for smoke, report fires. No one told me how loud silence could be when you're completely alone. The tower was surrounded by miles of dense forest. No roads, no houses, just trees stacked so tightly together that daylight struggled to reach the ground. During the day, it felt manageable. Birds, wind, the occasional deer moving between the trunks. At night, everything changed. The forest didn't sleep. It waited. On my third night, I heard footsteps. Not heavy, not rushed. Slow, careful. I remember telling myself it was an animal. That's what you always tell yourself. But animals don't stop when you stop breathing. I stood completely still inside the tower. No movement, no sound. The footsteps stopped too. Minutes passed. Then something scraped against the ladder beneath me. Once, twice, like someone testing it. I didn't look down. I couldn't. The radio crackled suddenly, breaking the silence. Static. Then a voice. But it wasn't dispatch. It was whispering, low, unclear, like someone trying to speak without letting their breath show. I shut the radio off. The scraping stopped. When morning came, I climbed down slowly. The dirt below the ladder was disturbed. Boot prints, barefoot. That night, I requested a transfer. They told me no one else was stationed within 50 miles. I stayed 3 more nights. Every night, the footsteps returned, always circling, never approaching fully, until the final night. That time, the ladder shook, and a voice whispered my name. I never went back. The second story came from a man I met years later while hiking in Appalachia. He told me his story only after dark, only after making sure we were alone. He said he and his brother went hunting deep in the woods during late fall. They planned to stay 2 nights. By the first evening, they realized something was wrong. The forest was quiet. No insects, no birds, not even wind. They set up camp anyway. That was their first mistake. Around midnight, they heard something walking just outside the firelight. Heavy steps, dragging. The brother called out, thinking it was a bear. The footsteps stopped. Then something answered. It copied his voice perfectly. Same tone, same words, just slower. The fire went out suddenly. Total darkness. They didn't run. They couldn't see. That's when the smell hit them. Rot, wet earth, something old. The thing started circling them, repeating their voices back and forth, laughing between words. By morning, the brother was gone. No blood, no tracks, just his boots neatly placed beside the fire pit. The man never returned to those woods. He said sometimes, when it's quiet enough, he still hears his brother calling his name. The third story happened to me. I was camping alone in a national forest in Montana, far from any official campsite. I wanted isolation. I got it. The first night was uneventful, cold. Still, the second night, I woke up because something was breathing outside my tent. Slow, deep, too controlled to be an animal. I held my breath. The breathing stopped. Then fingers pressed against the fabric. I could see their outline, long, thin. They traced the zipper, slowly, like they were learning how it worked. I didn't scream. I didn't move. After a while, the fingers withdrew. I stayed awake until sunrise. In the morning, there were handprints all over the tent, human-sized, but the fingers were too long. The fourth story was sent to Dark Truth in an email I almost deleted. A park ranger from Washington State wrote it. He said there was a section of forest closed to the public, no signs explaining why, just gates. He was assigned to patrol it alone. One night, his radio picked up a child crying. Lost hikers weren't uncommon, so he followed the sound. The crying led him deeper and deeper into restricted land. Finally, he saw the child standing between trees, too still. When he approached, the child looked up. Its face didn't move, no blinking, no emotion. The mouth opened wider than it should have, and an adult voice came out. The ranger ran. The next day, the area was permanently sealed. The fifth story is quieter. A woman, camping with her husband in Colorado, woke up to find him sitting upright, staring into the woods. He wouldn't respond. He just pointed. She followed his gaze and saw dozens of eyes reflecting in the dark, all at the same height, not blinking. At dawn, the eyes were gone. Her husband never spoke again. Doctors said it was shock. She said it was recognition. I'm going to stop here for now, because the deeper you go into these stories, the harder it becomes to come back. And the woods, they don't like being talked about. The sixth story came from a truck driver who used to take night routes through the forests of Northern California. He told me he preferred driving at night. Less traffic, less noise. That changed after one delivery. The road cut straight through miles of dense woodland. No street lights, no cell service. Around 2:40 a.m., he noticed someone standing at the edge of the trees. Just standing there. No reflective vest, no flashlight, no movement. He slowed down, thinking it might be an injured hiker. As his headlights passed over the figure, he saw it wasn't facing the road. It was facing the trees, like it was listening to something deeper inside. Then its head turned, too far. The neck twisted farther than a human neck should. Its face was pale, smooth, no expression. Their eyes locked onto him. The truck stalled. Dead silence. No engine. No insects. No wind. The figure began walking toward the road, each step slow and deliberate. He slammed the ignition. Nothing. When the engine finally roared back to life, the figure was gone. But for the rest of the drive, he saw it in his mirrors, standing between trees, watching. The seventh story happened in a small logging town in Idaho. Locals warned outsiders not to hike after sunset. They never explained why. A group of college students ignored them. They went in just before dusk. Only one came back. He told police they heard whistling. As the light faded, not a tune, just a single note, over and over. Whenever they stopped walking, the whistling stopped too. They tried to leave. The trail was gone. Trees where the path used to be. Panic set in. The whistling moved closer. Then voices joined in, calling their names. Using memories only friends would know. One by one, the voices came from behind them. The survivor said the forest felt tighter, closer, like it was closing in. He ran until his lungs burned. He didn't stop until he reached the road. The others were never found. The 8th story is the hardest for me to tell because it involves children. A family camping in Tennessee reported hearing laughter outside their cabin late at night. High-pitched, playful. They assumed it was kids from another campsite until they realized the sound was coming from all directions at once. The laughter slowly changed, lower, deeper, mocking. Their youngest child began laughing back. In his sleep, they woke him. He didn't recognize them. He kept pointing toward the trees, saying his new friends were waiting. They left before sunrise. The child stopped laughing days later, but he still talks to someone at night. The 9th story comes from a search and rescue volunteer. He told me some missing person cases don't make sense. People vanish without struggle. Shoes lined up neatly. Clothes folded. One case stood out. A man disappeared during a solo hike. They found his campsite intact. Fire still ready to light. Backpack untouched. His journal was open to the last page. It read, "They're learning how to sound like us." That was it. No body was ever recovered. The 10th story isn't mine. It's yours. Because if you've ever been deep in the woods, really deep, you've felt it. That moment when the forest goes quiet, when you suddenly feel watched, when your instincts tell you to leave. Now, most people ignore that feeling. They tell themselves it's nothing. But the woods remember everyone who doesn't listen. I don't tell these stories to scare you. I tell them because they're real, because people keep going missing, and because somewhere out there, in places untouched by light, something is paying attention. If you're listening to this while trying to fall asleep, that's okay. Just remember one thing. The woods don't end at the tree line. They follow. They wait. And sometimes they listen back. After I finished collecting those 10 stories, I told myself I was done. I stopped reading emails sent to Dark Truth, stopped answering messages, stopped hiking alone. But the woods didn't stop reaching out. It began with small things, a smell of damp earth when my windows were closed, leaves stuck to my shoes after walking on pavement, dirt under my fingernails when I woke up. I live in a city now. Concrete, streetlights, noise. There are no trees near my apartment. Still, some nights, the silence feels wooded. One evening, as I was recording narration, my microphone picked up something strange, not static, breathing, slow, measured. I paused the recording. The breathing continued behind me. I didn't turn around. I finished the sentence I was reading, my voice shaking only slightly. When I listened back, the breathing was gone, but something else had been recorded. A faint sound, leaves crunching. I deleted the file. The next morning, my inbox was full. Emails sent overnight, all from different addresses. all with the same subject line. Did you hear us? I didn't open them. That afternoon, I noticed footprints outside my building, barefoot, leading to the fire escape. That night, I dreamed I was standing at the edge of a forest. The trees were impossibly tall, their branches tangled together, blocking the sky. I could hear whispers, overlapping voices, all saying my name. When I tried to step back, roots wrapped around my ankles, holding me in place. I woke up screaming. There was dirt on my bed. I considered moving, but part of me already knew it wouldn't matter, because the last thing people misunderstand about the deep woods is that they aren't just places. They're listeners. They learn. They remember. And when you share their stories, they notice. Tonight, as you're lying there, eyes heavy, breathing slow, drifting toward sleep, pay attention to the quiet. If it feels deeper than it should, if the darkness seems to press in a little closer, don't open your eyes. Don't call out. Just listen and hope that whatever is listening back doesn't decide to answer. I thought that ending the recording would end it. I was wrong. The nights after that became longer, heavier. Sleep stopped feeling like rest. It felt like leaving something unlocked. I would lie in bed, eyes closed, listening to the city outside, cars passing, distant sirens, normal sounds. But between them, there were gaps. And in those gaps, something else existed, a silence that didn't belong indoors. One night, around 3 a.m., I heard it clearly. Footsteps, not in the hallway, not on the street, inside my apartment. Slow, careful, like whoever it was didn't want to be heard. I stayed completely still. I counted my breaths. In, out. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. I could feel someone standing there, not breathing, not moving, just present. Minutes passed. Then something lightly brushed the door. Not a knock, more like fingers dragging across the wood. Testing, learning. I squeezed my eyes shut. In my head, I told myself not to think about trees, about roots, about forests, because the moment I did, I smelled pine. The handle turned, just enough to make a sound. Then it stopped. In the morning, the door was still locked, but there were scratches near the handle, thin, uneven, not made by anything I own. That day, I received another email. No subject, no message, just an audio file. I shouldn't have played it, but curiosity has always been my weakness. At first, it was just static, then wind, then my voice, whispering, saying things I don't remember recording. My name, over and over, and beneath it all, leaves crunching. I shut the laptop and backed away. That night, I didn't sleep. Around dawn, I heard birds. For the first time in weeks, relief washed over me until I realized something. They weren't outside. They were inside the walls, scratching, fluttering, trying to get out. I moved out the next day. New place, new locks, higher floor, no fire escape. For a while, things were quiet, almost normal, until I noticed a plant outside my window, a small sapling growing from a crack in the concrete. I don't remember it being there before. Every day, it looked a little taller, a little closer. Last night, as I lay down, I heard something faint, a familiar sound, whistling, one note, repeated, coming from far away, or maybe from just beneath the floor. If you're still listening, if you're drifting towards sleep, I need you to understand something. The deep woods don't need trees to exist. They only need space, silence, attention. And once you've heard them, once you've listened long enough, they know where you are. So, if you hear footsteps tonight, if the quiet feels wrong, don't look for the source, because the moment you do, you won't be alone anymore. I hesitated before sharing what comes next, because this is the part where the line disappears, the line between story and confession. After the whistling started beneath the floor, I stopped pretending this was just stress or imagination or exhaustion. I began documenting everything: times, sounds, smells. At first, the pattern seemed random, but after a week, something became clear. The noises only happened when I was still, when I stopped moving, stopped scrolling, stopped distracting myself. Silence was the invitation. One night, I tested it. I turned off every light, every device. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, and waited. At first, nothing happened. My heart slowed. My breathing steadied. Then the silence thickened. It felt heavier, like pressure in my ears when you change altitude. And then I heard it. Not footsteps. Roots. Scraping. Creeping. Like something growing where it shouldn't. The sound moved along the walls, slow and deliberate, circling the room. I pressed my palms to the floor. It was warm, not room temperature warm, alive warm. I pulled my hands back. There were faint impressions left behind, not handprints, veins. The next morning, the sapling outside my window had grown taller. Its leaves brushed the glass. When the wind blew, it didn't sway away. It leaned in. That was when I remembered something a ranger once told me. He said forests don't expand randomly. They reclaim. I started sleeping with the lights on. It didn't help, because the dreams didn't need darkness. In them, I was always walking. Barefoot. The ground was soft and damp beneath me. I could hear others moving between the trees. I never saw them, but I knew they were smiling. Not with mouths, with patience. Every time I woke up, my feet were dirty. One morning, there was bark under my nails. I tried to leave the city, booked a hotel near the coast. No woods, no trees. The first night was peaceful. The second night, I woke to the sound of waves. Too close, too rhythmic. I opened my eyes. The hotel room was gone. I was back in the forest, standing in a clearing. Dozens of figures stood between the trees, human shapes, wrong details, arms too long, necks too still. They didn't approach. They waited. One stepped forward. When it spoke, it used my voice. It said, "You've been listening for so long." I woke up screaming. The hotel clerk said I'd been standing outside my room, barefoot, staring at the potted plants in the hallway, muttering. I came back home. There was no point running anymore, because the truth is simple. The deep woods aren't out there. They're a condition, a presence that grows wherever it's acknowledged. Every story told, every fear shared, every moment of quiet attention, you help them take root. That's why I'm careful now. That's why I lower my voice. Because as you listen to this, as your breathing slows, as your mind drifts, you're creating space, and something ancient loves empty space. If the silence around you starts to feel crowded, if the dark seems closer than before, don't panic. That only makes them curious. Just remember this. You're not the first to listen, and you won't be the last. The woods are very patient, and now they know you're here. After that night, I stopped trying to explain things. I stopped looking for logic, stopped searching for rational answers, because logic requires distance, and whatever this was, it no longer felt distant. Days passed where nothing happened. No sounds, no smells, no dreams. Those days were worse, because silence, I learned, is not absence. It's anticipation. I noticed small changes in myself. I preferred dim rooms. Bright lights felt invasive. I caught myself standing still for long periods, listening to nothing, enjoying it. That realization scared me more than any sound ever had. One evening, while washing my hands, I noticed faint lines on my wrists, thin, branching. I scrubbed harder. They didn't go away. They faded, only when I stopped looking. That night, the emails returned. No sender names, no addresses, just audio files. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I could already hear what they contained. Wind, leaves, footsteps that matched my own pace. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went outside. It was late. The city was quiet. Streetlights buzzed softly overhead. As I walked, I realized something unsettling. Between the buildings, in alleys, in the spaces no one looks at, there were shadows shaped like tree lines. Not real, but convincing. I passed a small park. A handful of trees surrounded a patch of grass. I stopped. Every instinct screamed at me to keep walking, but my feet didn't move. The air inside the park felt different. Cooler, damp. I took one step in. The city noise faded instantly. No cars, no voices, just quiet, familiar quiet. I stood there for a long time, and then I heard it, breathing, not behind me, around me, like the park itself was inhaling. I whispered without meaning to. "I hear you," the silence responded. It pressed in, gently, almost kindly. I left before I could say anything else. That night, I dreamed of roots again. But this time, they weren't holding me down. They were guiding me, showing me paths, not places, people. I saw bedrooms, apartments, houses. I saw listeners, people lying still in the dark, headphones on, eyes closed. I woke up with tears on my face, not from fear, from understanding. The woods don't hunt, they recruit. They don't drag you in screaming. They wait for you to listen long enough that you step forward on your own. That's why the stories are slow, why nothing rushes. Urgency scares prey. Patience builds belonging. If you're still awake, if part of you feels calmer than it should, that's okay. That means you're hearing them the right way. Just don't make the mistake of thinking this ends when the story does. Because once you've listened deeply enough, once the silence starts to feel familiar, you'll notice it too. In quiet rooms, empty streets, the space between breaths, and one night, without realizing when it happened, you'll stop waiting for the woods to come to you. You'll start listening for where they already are. I don't know exactly when I stopped being afraid. That realization came slowly, quietly, the way everything else had. Fear requires resistance, and at some point I stopped resisting. The nights became easier when I stopped fighting the silence, when I let it settle around me like a blanket. I stopped leaving lights on, stopped playing background noise. I would lie still and listen, not for sounds, for space. There were moments, long, drifting moments, where I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or closed, where my body felt lighter, thinner, like it was dissolving into the room. During those moments, I could feel them, not touching me, acknowledging me, like a presence passing through, pausing briefly, then moving on. One night, I realized I hadn't dreamed in weeks. Sleep felt different now, deeper, rooted. I began waking up before alarms, before sunrise, always calm, always alert, always listening. I stopped recording news stories for dark truth, not because I ran out of material, because the stories were no longer separate from me. They were happening continuously in grocery stores, when aisles felt too quiet, in elevators, when no one spoke, in empty stairwells where footsteps echoed just a little too long. I started noticing others, people who lingered in doorways, who paused in parks too long, who tilted their heads slightly when the wind moved through leaves. Listeners recognize listeners. We don't talk. We don't need to. One evening, I received a final email. No audio file, no subject, just a single line of text. You're ready to stop warning them. I stared at the screen for a long time, and then I closed the laptop. Tonight is the first time I've spoken about this since then, not as a warning, not as a confession, but as a kind of transition, because stories don't always end. Some of them slow down, soften, blend into the listener. If you feel heavier now, if the quiet around you feels fuller than before, that's not fear, that's familiarity. Don't sit up suddenly. Don't check the room. There's nothing to see. Just stay still. Let the silence finish settling. The woods won't rush you. They never do. They'll wait in the spaces you already leave open, in the moments you stop filling with noise, in the calm you didn't realize you were craving. And someday, not tonight, not tomorrow, you'll notice something small, something simple. The silence won't feel empty anymore. It will feel like home. I'm going to lower my voice now, not because something is close, but because this part doesn't like to be rushed. There comes a moment, quiet and almost unnoticeable, when listening turns into belonging. It isn't dramatic. There's no fear spike, no sudden realization. It feels like relief, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for too long. That moment found me one night when I was lying on the floor, not asleep, not awake. The room was dark, but I didn't think of it as darkness anymore. It was just space. I became aware of my breathing slowing on its own, each inhale softer than the last, each exhale longer. And in that space between breaths, I felt it, not a presence, an acceptance, as if something vast had noticed me and decided I fit. There were no voices then, no footsteps, no roots pushing through walls, just a deep surrounding stillness, the kind you only feel far away from roads, far away from people, far away from urgency. For the first time, I understood why people walk into the woods and never come back. Not because they're taken, because they stop wanting to leave. I don't record much anymore. There's no need. The stories are still happening, but they don't ask to be told. They ask to be held quietly, like secrets shared without words. If you've stayed with me this long, if your eyes feel heavy, if your thoughts are drifting slower than usual, that's okay. That's how it starts. You don't need to remember every word. You don't need to stay alert. Just let the silence do what it does best. Hold you. If you hear something later tonight, a soft sound you can't place, a quiet that feels deeper than it should, don't fight it. Don't name it. Just listen. Because the deep woods don't announce themselves. They don't chase. They don't demand. They simply wait, patient, endless, until the moment you realize you've already been listening for a very long time. And somewhere in the calm you've slipped into, something ancient and quiet has noticed you settle in. And it is very still. With you,